Hi, I'm Lucia. I'm a recent computer science grad from Case Western, and I'm now a user interface designer at Charter Communications. During my time at Case, I was the director of design at Hackathon, and now I'm here. So welcome to my talk, Identifying Your Hackathon Aesthetic. We're going to be defining aesthetic as something that's exclusively positive, and it's going to be the look and feel of your hackathon. And you might be wondering, why have an aesthetic? Which is a really great and important question to start with. I'd like to say that an aesthetic is not just the bow on top or something you slap on at the end. It has a purpose. When you have a defined aesthetic, you can save a lot of time when it comes to making components for your site, designing merchandise, or making flyers. And more importantly, you can make your hackathon a much more memorable experience that will keep hackers coming back. So there's a lot of ways to uncover your aesthetic, and the main way that I'm going to discuss today is defining your voice and tone. So your voice is the personality of your hackathon, and the tone is how you use that voice. So it's a little bit more nuanced depending on the context. So, for example, let's say you're a healthcare hackathon that's geared towards beginners. You want to sound friendly because it's for beginners, but also maintain that level of professionalism because this is a healthcare hackathon. We can get a little bit more specific than that too. We can say things like, we are friendly, but not chummy. We are professional, but not overbearing. And it doesn't have to be this binary thing either. It can be on a spectrum. We can take a bunch of adjectives that are opposite of each other, pin our hackathon down on those spectrums, put all of those spectrums together, and we get something that's called a brand matrix. And this sweet spot, this little teal box, is where everything we build from here on out should sit. All of our components, our flyers, and everything else should match this little sweet spot. So great, let's finally start designing. There's a couple things that I'm going to be discussing when it comes to an aesthetic. So I'm going to be starting with color. And a lot of people will tell me, ooh, I really want to use that blue. It's going to be really trusting. And ew, let's not use that red. It's going to make our audience so angry. And I want to say, okay, but that's not always the case. And I think an example would be a really great way to demonstrate that. So let's take this teal. It's kind of drab looking, and you're probably going to tell me, ew, it's so drab and ugly, we're not going to use that teal. And I could say, yes, we could build a very kind of serious looking palette out of this. But I could also tell you, hey, let's build this really playful palette on the right. And in fact, both of these palettes use two of the exact same colors, this teal and that goldenrod yellow. I think this really demonstrates an important aspect of all of these components, whether it comes to color or just, any of these things that I discuss, that even though they say things on their own alone, together they speak a lot louder, and your components are never going to be alone. So keep that in mind. The next thing I'd like to discuss is kind of grouped together typography, shape and line, and spacing. So a really great way to figure these three out is start with either typography or shape and line and spacing, and then go the other way. So to give an example, if you go to fontsanduse.com, that's a really great resource for figuring out your fonts. It shows you a bunch of font pairings or trios, and you can see how that matches your voice and tone. And off of that, you can figure out what your shape and line might look like. Maybe it's like this presentation, it's very square, 90 degrees. Or maybe, it's like this font on the right, it's a little bit more rounded, and there's a lot of spacing, which is a little bit more of a minimalist look. The next thing I'm going to be talking about are images and icons. So images that could be photography or illustrations that you make on your own. And for icons, a really great resource for that is the Noun Project. I think a lot of people will tell me that they want to use Material.io, which is Google's design system. But remember that this is your own hackathon and you're not Google. You are something completely different. And I think the Noun Project can be a really great way to find icons that accurately suit your voice and tone. The last thing is motion. Some people might want to just slap motion on at the end, and it's like the cherry on top, just like an aesthetic, right? But it's not. It has a purpose. You can use motion to amplify your voice and tone, or you can use motion to call attention to something on your site. So to really quickly touch upon ways to brainstorm about this stuff, mood boards, like using Pinterest, are a really great way to figure out colors or any of the font stuff that I discussed earlier. Crazy eights, every person goes into their corner, spends 30 seconds on 8 different sketches, and you can come back together with your favorite one and figure out what the best thing is that. So that could be for aesthetics, color, or what your site looks like. And of course, bookmark anything that you find inspiring or cool. But yeah, that's my talk. Thanks for coming, and you can reach out to me at any of these links.